Okay, so let's take a look at the nomenclature of aldehydes and ketones, the nomenclature. So when we're talking about nomenclature, we're going to follow the same rules that we did when we were naming alkanes, alkynes, alkenes, and alcohols, which is where we identify the name of the parent, 2, we identify and name the substituents, 3, we assign numbers or locants to each substituent, and then 4, the fourth thing we're going to do is we're going to assemble everything alphabetically. And what's interesting about aldehydes, when we talk about the nomenclature of aldehydes, is that we use the suffix al. So aldehyde of carbon is going to be number 1. It will always be our first carbon, despite the presence of any alkyl groups, pi bonds, or hydroxyl groups. So aldehydes will take precedence over alkyl groups, pi bonds, again, and hydroxyl groups. So whenever you're dealing with an aldehyde, the carbon that the aldehyde is part of will always be considered carbon number 1. So if you take a look at example A down here, if you take a look at this example, we have a carbon chain, and we can see that we obviously have an aldehyde group here, so that carbon is going to be carbon 1, and then we're going to build our longest chain from that. So you can obviously see that we go, what, carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we want to name the rest of this carbon, or the rest of this chain, well, if we just start off with our chain, we know that we have a 6 carbon chain, so that's going to be a 6 carbon chain would be called hexane, but since we put in the suffix al, it's going to be hexanal, so it's hexanal, and then we're going to identify our substituents and give them locants, so we have 2,2-dimethyl, so we're going to have 2,2-dimethyl, and then we have 5,5-dibromo, 5,5-dibromo. So those are all the pieces that we need to name this aldehyde. So if we assemble them all together, we're going to do it in alphabetical order, and again, the prefix di doesn't mean anything, or it means something, but it doesn't matter for alphabetical order. So you can see that B comes before M, so this compound should be 5,5-dibromo, 2,2-dimethyl. I'm running out of space, so I'll put the rest of it down here. Hexanal. So 5,5-dibromo, 2,2-dimethyl hexanal. And for ketones, unlike aldehydes where our suffix is al, our suffix will be one. So one is our suffix. So it says here the carbonyl group from the ketone is going to be part of the parent chain. So even if there is a longer chain, it doesn't matter. We have to include the ketone in the parent chain. So aldehydes and ketones take precedence over everything that we've seen so far. So everything that we've seen so far. And you can look at the table, the precedence table that's in the course resources section of Blackboard. And we might talk about that later on in the class when we start to learn even more functional groups and learn how to employ those in nomenclature. So again, we're going to use the suffix one when we're naming a ketone. So let's just take a look at example C down here. So you can see that the parent is going to be this cyclopentane. We have a 5-membered ring, so that's a cyclopentane. So since we have a ketone here, we're going to call it cyclopentanone. So we put in that "-one" suffix. And then we're going to assign locants and names to our substituents. So if we start with the ketone as being number 1, and we go this way, 2, 3, 4, excuse me, let me erase that, 4, 5. It doesn't matter which direction we go because this molecule is symmetrical, but you can see we have 4 methyl groups, so we have 2,2-dimethyl, and then we have 5,5-dimethyl. But since these groups are all the same, we're not going to use dimethyl, we're going to use tetramethyl. So if we use tetramethyl, since these groups are all identical, we're going to call this molecule 2,2,5,5-tetramethyl, and that covers all of our substituents. Tetramethyl, and again, I'm running out of room. There shouldn't be a space here, so I'm going to put this down below. Cyclopentanone. And again, you can take a look at section 20.2 in Klein, which covers pages 933, 934, 935. So we'll say 933. So we'll say it covers pages 933 to 935 in Klein, and that can give you more detail, and we'll look at some more examples of that in a future video.